Good day. Welcome to another episode of AXIOM TV. I'm your host, Jason V. Sareve, aka Brave Mind, aka the King of the North, aka the Antichrist. In today's video, I would like to talk about the artificial conception of patriarchy. This video will establish direct correlations between the false construct of patriarchy and how it directly correlates with chauvinism and homosexuality. Full disclosure, I have no problem with gay people. What a person's sex life is their own business, in my view. What I do take issue with is when a group of men build a society based on male adoration and insist that it was done so out of anything but homosexuality. Now, if you look at the system of patriarchy and where that concept could have possibly originated, and the thought, the mindset that it had to have started from initially, as well as what it would eventually logically result in. Patriarchy had to have started out as a man crush / bromance, and it snowballed from there. If you look at ancient Greek or Roman society, pederasty, which is boy loving, taking on a young boy as a lover, which today we would call pedophilia, was an accepted practice at one point within those societies. But to bring the focus more to the United States, if we look at the history of the United States, slave masters used to cut slaves, African slaves' penises off. Now, can we say that that form of punishment was a result of a heterosexual mind? Not in my view. If you also think of the practice that slave masters used to engage in of raping male slaves during slave times, that is also from a mindset that had to either be bisexual or homosexual. Or how would these slave masters have gotten aroused in the first place in order to rape their male African slaves? Just to simply be able to become aroused to perform such an action, it had to have started from a desire for the slave masters to have sex, that the slave masters possessed to have sex with their male slaves, because without arousal, sex cannot happen. Now, another example I'd like to use from history is the Salem witch trials. And if you look at that episode, we have to wonder to ourselves, only males that were homosexual or at least bisexual could have even thought of such an episode. It's quite simple, really. You just have to ask yourself, what group of heterosexual men, what scenario would cause them to decide that their town or the country or their area would be better off with less women? Only homosexual men could have come to such a conclusion. Only men that were affectionate to other males would even consider such a thing. Even if all the women were indeed witches, which we know witchcraft is superstition. It is not real. There is no one that can cast a spell or put curses or hexes on anyone. Science has already debunked any any thought of that. In fact, we wouldn't need science if witchcraft was real. Let me put it like that. And do you think a group of heterosexual men would have really thought to themselves, if the women were witches, that, oh, we should burn them at the stake, rather than thinking to themselves, it looks like we're going to have to adopt or learn witchcraft in order to better relate with the women? The form of punishment of witches, what are the women that were deemed witches, is also telling. The burning at the stake. That method of death is a clear sign of women, of hatred toward women, because it's a little extreme if you really think about it. Also, during the Jim Crow era, excuse me if I'm messing up in chronological order, during the Jim Crow era, all the way up to now, a stereotype of or propaganda, excuse me, of black males is that not only that we have bigger penises than white males in general, but it's also the other part of that propaganda is that black males have voracious sexual appetites. And when you think about that propaganda, it begs the question, isn't that a white male's way of saying that they themselves are lacking in such ability? If anything, there's some kind of jealous of capability there, in my view. If we look at our holidays, particularly Christmas, they are also infected by patriarchy. Santa Claus, if you look at the story of him, how we tell it, or how the story is known to us, popularly known, is a chauvinist. I've never heard of him allowing Mrs. Claus to ride along to deliver gifts to all the people in the world, let alone drive the sleigh. If you consider the story of Rudolph may have started off with what we would call feminine qualities, or a beta male type of mentality, due to his low self-esteem from all the other reindeer ostracizing him. But in the end, Rudolph turned out to be the hero of all the reindeer, and Rudolph was a male. Christmas subtly and subliminally gives the impression that only a man provides. Only a man can bless us with gifts. It's the same thing when you examine religion and the concept of God. We refer to God as a male, when no Christian, and I will challenge any Christian to provide a reasonable explanation as to why God would need a penis at all. Does God, the creator of all, need to urinate? Does it need to engage in sex or impregnate other deities? When our whole premise of religion is that God created everything. So I never thought that made sense. Aside from being oppressive to females, another problem with patriarchy, or the false concept of patriarchy, is that it protects weak men, weak-minded men, beta males. It's almost like a union. How unions seem to protect bad workers and reward them for the same efforts that a good worker puts forward. Too many weak men get to pretend to be more than what they truly are due to patriarchy. This is why the beta male issue is a problem in this country. In fact, I would say beta males is systemic in this country due to the concept of patriarchy. Males hiding behind guns or expressing their love for guns, bragging on their physical strength, or speaking with in terms that are exaggerated machismo, is a smokescreen. It's a veil. It's a veneer. I've always thought that any male that has to constantly put up a macho front is overcompensating for something. I think the facts bear that out. And if you look at how our country is always making a point to brag about us being the military might of the world, having the strongest military in the world, as well as how our military carried a policy that we've begun to revisit of don't ask, don't tell, or being anti-gay or homophobic. It is clear that even our military is overcompensating for something. The very fact that we have to constantly brag about being the military might of the world or military power of the world demonstrates this. If you are really a gifted or talented person, you don't need to brag about it. You simply demonstrate it, and that's good enough. Former First Lady Michelle Obama has stated before that male domination is supported by many females who I assert have been brainwashed, or this is due to those females being brainwashed by having been born and raised in a system of patriarchy. So male domination is all they know. So of course they subscribe to that way of thought. It's the you can't beat them, might as well join them type of mentality. And this is why, in my mind, beta males should belong with beta females. If there are some females who feel that men should dominate them, that is your choice. Then you should be with beta males who are the ones who feel that males should dominate women, that women belong in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, and whatever other statements they like to make that are to the negative of women or to the detriment of women. Now, in terms of the terms that we use in present day society, such as a man's man, or a man crush, or a bromance, in my view, those terms are homosexual terms. Is a man's man, which is a male possessing another male, or a form of a man crush or a bromance? Is this a form of is this from a heterosexual mindset? Or does it promote a heterosexual mindset? No. That is at least subliminally at a homosexual mindset. It is a gay mentality. I have an issue with even the term butthurt. Butthurt. It doesn't seem like the most heterosexual term to me. Another thing I've noticed is that many males in the United States speak on or talk about another male's penis a little too much for me. It's kind of going back to what comedian George Carlin used to say, that we have a problem within our society of penis envy. And that plays itself out all the time if you only stop and take the time to pay attention. Another term that I have to take issue with is the term of male feminist. Now, this is a term that's been used to seem like it's being offensive to males who defend the rights of females to be equal in society. To me, males who even use this term as a derogatory remark are essentially admitting that they formulate their words and actions to impress other males. If you think about that. Because they assert that a male feminist is trying to impress women by trying to stand up for their rights. My question to the male chauvinists are, should males who take such a position be trying to impress you instead? But clearly you would rather that. So to me, that just doesn't seem like the most heterosexual starting point or lens to even arguing that being worth a discussion that is not based in homosexuality. If you remember the Brock Turner case, the Stanford student who clearly made a risk assessment in his mind of assaulting a female student at the prestigious school of Stanford by a garbage dumpster, and only received less than 6 months in jail for that action. If you remember, his father wrote to the male judge that his son shouldn't have his life ruined for 20 minutes of action. If you look at our sports, let's take our most popular sport, the NFL, football, and the most popular position, the quarterback. The quarterback, before he starts every play, takes a position under the center. It's called the quarterback being under center. If you pan back and look at that position, it does not seem like the most heterosexual position for any two males to be in. If you look at our fetishes in sex, it's been known for a while now that there are men out there that that seem to have an affinity to have sex with women that wear strap-ons. Also, there seems to be an obsession with many males in our society with anal sex. Many going as far as desiring it more than conventional sex. Going back a little bit in history, if we want to look at, say, pirates or sailors, for a long time it was a superstition, a closely held superstition was that women are bad luck on ships. It just begs the question as to what all those sailors, those male sailors and crew with the captain, what they did for sexual release all that time at sea. Another thing worth pointing out is that there has yet to be a female president within the United States. There also isn't any female popes, and the only reason why I bring up the Pope, even though the Pope does not reside in the United States, there are many Catholics in this country that follow the Pope. And the fact that we haven't had any female popes, or it's perceived that there shouldn't be one, because the Pope and Catholicism does, it is a major part of Western culture. And when you think about the fact that there hasn't been a female president yet, and I'm not saying that eventually we won't have one, but that will still be one, or maybe they'll let a few in and there'll be a few. That pales in comparison or contrast to the amount of male presidents that there have been, as well as male popes. And if we stick to religion, why else do we think that that priests in the Catholic Church were allowed to rape so many little boys with virtually impunity for decades, not a year or two, but over a period and duration of decades, if it wasn't due to our system of patriarchy / male adoration / bromance. It's also worth taking a look and mentioning the pressure that we put on females with their appearance. It's resulted in not only a low self-esteem for females, but also eating disorders, which has directly threatened their health. If you look at stars such as Angelina Jolie, not to single her out, because I'm a fan of her work, but as you will see, I'm not a fan of her living up to the pressure of having to be skinny. If you look at, if you take away her breast size, what is Angelina Jolie, or women who feel the pressure to have to be extremely skinny, what are they shaped like? They are shaped like females who have yet to hit puberty. But this is the preference of Western culture. It also, if you ask me, this directly feeds into the pedophilia within the country. Because remember, girls who have not hit puberty are shaped like boys, which seem to be ideal for the patriarchy dudes. That also lends to pedophilia and the pederasty, as I mentioned, practiced by the ancient Greeks and Romans at one point. And it also begins to give you a better sense of why so many white males seem to have a preference for Asian women. We can say that Asian women being docile is a part of it, but also a big part of it is the fact that though Asian women are shaped feminine, in a feminine way, to Asian males, in comparison to the physique of many white females, or especially black females, Asian women are shaped like boys, or girls who have yet to hit puberty, if we're being honest. So I just wanted to point out, though, in conclusion, I just wanted to point out the fact that the reason that, though we masquerade and go around in this country saying that we have an issue with homosexuality and gay people, ultimately our system of patriarchy generates pedophilia, pederasty, as well as homosexuality. If there was none previous to patriarchy, patriarchy would have eventually forced those outcomes. Please leave a comment whether you agree or disagree. Like the video if you find value in it. Share it if you wish to share this conversation with someone else that you think may be interested in it. And subscribe to the channel because it is a channel for anyone who desires to think objectively and who desires to think bravely. We supposedly live in a free country, so we should be able to freely exchange thoughts and ideas that do not go along with the hypocrisy and delusions of the status quo. Thinker salute. Thank you for taking the time to listen.